Hello and welcome to Open Line. I'm Starlene Stringer. Well, it's the holiday season and that means a lot of parties. And while it's great to have fun, everyone wants to make sure you do it safely. And that means no drinking and driving. Viewers were invited to submit questions via email and social media, and we'll be getting those questions answered throughout the show. Our guests are Irving police officers Steve Burres and Jeff Miracle, who is the North Texas Executive Director of Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Well, and it's that time of the year. We talked about it. More parties are coming up. So, Officer Burres, how big of a problem is drunk driving at this time of the year?
We typically see an increase in impaired driving accidents and DWI arrests overall during the holiday seasons because more companies and individuals are having, company parties, Christmas parties, etc. And there is a lot of social drinking that goes on at those parties. So we do typically see an increase in alcohol-related offenses during basically the November through January 1st time of the year.
Wow, thanks for the warning. Do you see the same kind of increase as well?
We do. We have a special emphasis we do during this time of year called Tie One On for Safety, where we actually hand out red ribbons to folks. They can go to our website, which is mad.org, and get free red ribbons. And that's to show people that they're not going to drink and drive. And it is a time of year where over these 3 holidays of Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's, we see lots of people who are drinking, who normally don't drink during the year because they're going to parties that they may not attend the rest of the year. And the sad thing is, many times they'll get out and drive as well.
Wow. Officer Burres, I know you have a personal story that really is near and dear to your heart that's gotten you more involved and more concerned about this issue. Would you share that with us?
Surely. The first year that I was on the job, I was going to school at Texas Tech, came home for Easter holiday, and my long-term goal was to be a Texas State Trooper. One of the troopers from my home county, when I went home to see my parents for Easter, called and said, "Why don't you come out and ride tonight? The other troopers in the area would like to know, how things are going at college, how the academy went for." I was working for the sheriff's office at the time, and see when you're going to apply for recruit school. So it was a night that I probably should have stayed home. I went out and rode with the troopers. We worked a double amputation accident that involved an impaired driver, and I was helping one of the other troopers direct traffic on the service road when I was struck outside the vehicle. Someone yelled at me that there was a car nearby. I turned and looked, saw a car bumper, and had nowhere to go. So I was hit and thrown through the windshield and then thrown off the hood of the car 57 feet, and I ended up shattering everything below the knee in 25 places. So started 4 years of reconstructive surgery. So I decided if I could stay in police work that I was going to specialize in impaired driving enforcement. And for over 20 years, that's all I've done now is DWI enforcement.
Wow, what a story to share. We're glad you're here to share it with us today.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I know you have a personal story about it too, Jeff. Will you share yours?
Well, mine just goes back to the fact that over the past 23 years, I've worked in nonprofits and changed careers about 5 years ago and wanted to find a nonprofit in the Dallas area that really helped people. And when I looked into what MAD does, I didn't realize at the time, and most people don't, one of the biggest things that we do is help victims of drunk driving wrecks. As a matter of fact, just in North Texas last year, our staff helped out over 4,700 victims.
Wow.
Now, those didn't all occur during the year. Some of them are as old as 10 years ago as far as when it took place. But we assist free of charge many people in the Metroplex area. Everything from they need food because the person who may have died in the wreck was their breadwinner, they don't have food, to help pay their bills, to go through the court system, to sit in court with them. To prepare their victim impact statement once someone has been found guilty and they're getting ready to be sentenced. And I saw that and just really wanted to be a part of this organization because I knew that they make a difference every day in people's lives.
Well, with stories like that and numbers like those you've shared, there's obviously a need for help in this area. And I know, Officer Burres, that the Irving Police Department actually does have a DWI unit. Tell me about it.
We have a 5-man DWI unit and 1 sergeant. So there are 6 of us at nighttime that our full-time duties are, we specialize in impaired driving enforcement. 2 of the officers are accident reconstructionists and commercial vehicle enforcement officers, and the other 3 officers are drug recognition experts, which means we deal with both alcohol and drug impaired driving because we take DWI as anything that can cause impairment, and that may be someone who's just over-medicating themselves on prescription pills that's still driving impaired. So we work nights from 6 p.m. to 4 o'clock in the morning. We cover every night in the city where our main function is to look for impaired driving, trying to prevent alcohol-related accidents from happening. So we have a specialty in intox manslaughter investigation and intoxication assault investigations.
Wow.
That if one of those types of cases happens that they call out our entire section, and we basically will take over that investigation for the patrol division and work it through till it's concluded.
Wow, and to actually have that many people designated to help with it, there's obviously a need. And I know, Jeff, they just recently, they had numbers come out from MAD that are just alarming. And we're going to put those numbers on the screen so you can see those as we talk about them. But tell us what those numbers show.
Well, an increase across the nation in the number of deaths in 2012 versus 2011 in drunk driving. Here in Texas, unfortunately, we're the top state. There were 1,291 people who were killed in 2012 in DWI wrecks. The closest state to us was California, and they only had 801. So that means that we're 500 more than them. It's a huge problem in Texas, and one that needs to be dealt with even stronger legislatively. MAD supports tremendously the efforts of police officers like Steve and others throughout the state. But you know, they need to be given even more power to do some things. For instance, 38 states out there have the opportunity for their officers to have sobriety checkpoints. We don't have that in Texas. That's one of the things that MAD pushes to try to pass as a law in Texas so that the roadways can become safer and those numbers can go down.
So voting is definitely important when it comes to getting these issues out there.
It really is.
And something else that's important is knowing what to do if you see someone that you think is impaired. Maybe they're weaving and moving across the roads. Do you call 911?
Absolutely. If you can safely follow them, which means don't get right on their bumper, but if you can safely follow them, dial 911, give us a good physical description of the vehicle, the license plate number if you can, and where you are. That's the most important thing. A lot of people, you know, there's always a slight lag time between the time you call 911, the 911 operator takes your information, enters that into our CAD system, the dispatcher then dispatches an officer. So there's about a 30 to 45 second lag time. So if you say you're at 183 in MacArthur, you may now be at 183 in Beltline by the time the officer gets the call. So, and if you're not sure about your surroundings, give us some landmarks, because the officers that work the streets every day, you know, they know where, say, Westway Ford is or the Irving Mall is. I'm westbound. I'm heading towards Fort Worth. I don't know my directions, but I know I'm going towards Fort Worth.
Then
so
you know it's west.
We know which way you're going, and I'm in front of a big mall, so I know where you are. So that allows us the opportunity to try and intercept that intoxicated person and get him stopped. Sometimes it's texting, but a lot of times it is intoxicated drivers, and we rely on the public to help us police the streets, if you will, to try and stop some of these drunk drivers before they have accidents and kill people.
There you go. So it's important to call 911. And then what kind of danger? It puts everyone that's on the roadways in danger, of course, but for police officers trying to stop someone like this, what do you do?
Well, we go ahead and make the traffic stop in as safe a location as possible. Obviously, standing on the side of a highway is not safe at any time, but we try and select where we're going to try and stop this person. If they're in a construction area, we probably won't do it there, get past barriers or barricades or what have you. But you know, there's always a danger while we're outside the car dealing with this one intoxicated driver. We've had several of our squad cars that have been hit by other intoxicated drivers. They run right up in the back end of the patrol car. Thankfully, we haven't had any officers injured because of that. But you know, it's something that it's a risk that we have to take every day. But you know, it's a risk that we're willing to take to try and stop intoxicated drivers from killing people throughout the city.
Well, obviously you're putting your life on the line. It's dangerous out there, but we appreciate what you do. And then, Jeff, when they do pull those people over, oftentimes I'm sure they hear this, oh, I didn't know I drank too many, or I think I'm just fine. They overindulge and sometimes don't even realize it. How much can a person actually have and still actually be okay?
Well, from MAD's perspective, if you drink at all, you shouldn't drive. We used to say, have a designated driver. We've kind of changed that recently to say a non-drinking designated driver, because what we found out was for some people, the designated driver was just the guy in the group who drank the least.
Oh, wow.
And really, once you've had a drink, you just shouldn't drive. And it all comes down to planning ahead of time. And we always say to people, there's a misconception that MAD is a prohibitionist organization against drinking. Well, we're not. If you're of a legal age and you want to consume alcohol, that's your privilege. But before you do, plan ahead of time so that you have a non-drinking sober driver or a cab or a car service take you home so that you don't have to drink one drop and then drive afterwards.
There you go. Great advice. Don't drink and drive, period. Now, when you do meet people on the streets that have been drinking and driving, what's the excuse they usually give you?
I just have to get home. And sometimes we'll just literally ask them, do you think you're too intoxicated to drive? And they'll answer yes.
Wow.
And I'm like, well, then why are you operating a vehicle if you think you're too intoxicated to drive? Well, I've got to get my car home. They're not looking at the big picture that they're causing a hazard to everybody else on the highway. They're just thinking about themselves right then that, well, I've got to get up and go to work in the morning. I can't leave my car at the bar. I can't afford to take a taxi cab, so I need to get my car home. So I'm willing to take that risk to drive drunk. And like what Jeff was saying, the designated driver is the one who doesn't drink at all. Because you'd be amazed the number of designated drivers that we have arrested for driving while intoxicated, and their excuse is, well, I'm not as drunk as everybody else in the car.
Wow.
So that's kind of an odd
Yeah,
statement to make.
exactly.
You're not as drunk, but you're admitting that you are.
That's pretty scary. It's
Yes.
definitely scary. Now, I know you can't tell us, okay, don't drive on this street or don't drive on that street or this is the street to avoid at all times, but there are some where you catch more people than others.
Yes.
Aren't there? Can you tell us which ones?
Most of them are major highways that run through the city. I mean, a lot of people that live, say, in Tarrant County want to go to Dallas County for either like a Mavericks game or a hockey game, or they're going to the bars and social events that are happening in Dallas.
Okay.
So they go to Dallas, they're sober, they spend all evening at these events, they get intoxicated, and then they come back west, going back towards Grapevine, Hurst, Euless, Bedford, or whatever. So they're using 183, 635, and 114. We tend to see more intoxicated drivers on the highways, and that's why the DWI unit concentrates most of its efforts on the highways, because the speeds are greater. You know, a crash at 65, 70 miles an hour on the highway is much worse than a crash at 30 miles an hour on a side street.
That makes sense.
So we tend to spend most of our efforts on the highways trying to look for those type of drivers. But the main thoroughfares that run through the city, east to west, and even north to south, the main thoroughfares are the streets that you probably want to avoid after 2 o'clock in the morning if you can.
Good advice. And I remember speaking to an officer once, and he actually told me that you should stay out of the left lane. Is that still true?
It is. It's basically because with wrong way drivers, when they're going the wrong way, they think they're on the right side of the roadway. So if you occupy the right lane, you're going to pass by them versus go head on into them. Because a lot of people, when they see headlights coming at them, it takes a while for their brain to register that, wait, there's a vehicle on my side of the road, what am I supposed to do? And that's how we have these head-on collisions. So, you know, our recommendation is, yeah, stay in the far right lane if you can, because if you do encounter a driver who's on the wrong side of the road, more than likely they're going to be in the left lane but going the opposite direction.
Thank you. I was wondering about that, and when you told me that, I just took the advice. I'm like, if someone tells you you could save your life, drive in a different lane, do it. So I'm glad you got that cleared up for us. Also, I want to talk to you about this, Jeff, because some people may not be aware of it, but MAD National Headquarters right here in Irving, which is really, really great to have MAD headquartered here. But you're with the North Texas chapter of MAD. Tell me about the relationship y'all actually have with the Irving Police.
Well, as a part of the North Texas chapter, we oversee 31 counties in North Texas, including the area that our national office is in Irving. We have one full-time staff member who is paid through a TxDOT grant, who her job 40, 50 hours a week is to build relationships with police departments in Dallas County. She works a lot with the Irving Police Department. She goes out with the police officers, she meets with the police officers, she goes to their roll calls, provides them information, provides them materials, and just updates them on what's going on with MAD, and just really builds a relationship. We also once a year do a big recognition event for police officers throughout Dallas County that have been instrumental in keeping the roads safe from those who have been driving impaired. And so she works with the Irving Police Department in honoring its top officers in that way as well.
Okay, very cool. And speaking of officers working with you hand in hand, I know Officer Burres, we've seen you at some of the Walk Like MAD events.
Yes.
Tell us, how is Irving represented there?
I'm proud to say that the Irving Police Department has been the top law enforcement team for the past 11 years of the MAD Walk. Considering we were smaller in numbers than some of the surrounding agencies, such as like Dallas, we've always been the top law enforcement agency with the most money raised. In the last 11 years that we've been doing the MAD Walk, the Irving Police Department has raised over $60,000 for Mothers Against Drunk Driving. And what we do is we donate all of the money that we have T-shirt sales.
Okay.
And the T-shirts that we wear for the MAD Walk are in memory of our first officer killed in the line of duty, Officer Glenn Holmes. Glenn was killed by a drunk driver on 114 at Beltline. His wife still works for us, is one of our dispatchers. So every year we dedicate the walk in his memory. And we sell team T-shirts, and then we donate 100% of the profits to Mothers Against Drunk Driving.
Nice.
So we usually have about 117 people from the department, family members, friends of the department, sign up under the Irving Police team to support the Irving Police Department, what our efforts are to kind of curtail impaired driving and get the message out there. And then we participate by doing the 5K every year.
Very nice. And that's ways people can get involved and help out with that in particular. But Jeff, how can people help MAD in other ways?
Well, we have lots of volunteer opportunities throughout the year as well. One of the things that we do is we go to schools and civic groups and churches and really any group that will have us come and talk to them about the dangers of drunk driving, talk to them about the dangers of underage drinking. And we have volunteers that we train to go out and do that because we just can't have enough paid staff to cover the entire area. And again, they can go to mad.org/North Texas, and there's a tab right there where they can volunteer. They can also make online donations to us. Any of the money that's given to us in North Texas helps MAD in North Texas. Our two biggest fundraisers are our walks. Our Dallas walk is coming up on April the 26th of 2014, and our Fort Worth walk will be at the end of October. They can go to the MAD website and sign up for the walk and participate. In Dallas, I actually found out this past year when I went to a national seminar that Dallas is actually the biggest MAD walk this past year in the entire country. We'll have about 2,500 people total the day of the walk, which will be held again this year in Main Street Garden Park in downtown Dallas.
Wow, very nice, very, very nice. And Officer Burres, I want to come back to you for just a minute because I know the Irving Police Department sometimes runs no refusal weekends around the holidays.
Correct.
How do those work?
When we do a no refusal operation, what we do is the traffic section or the DWI unit, we alter our hours to make sure that we have extra patrols on specific nights. Like we'll be running no refusal operation December 27th and 28th, and also on December 31st going into the new year. And what we do for no refusal operation is we have the DWI section, and along with a TxDOT grant, we have additional officers that may be on their day off that are coming into work paid by a TxDOT grant to work these no refusal operations. What we do on no refusal is every drunk driver we take a blood sample from.
Wow.
We give you the opportunity to provide that sample if you want to consent to it. If you don't, we have a judge and a nurse on hand that we will write a search warrant for your blood, have the judge sign it after the officer swears to it, and then we will take the sample from you. Our opinion is we're not going to be denied the evidence that we need to show that you drove intoxicated. It has been a very, very successful program. We've gotten 100% conviction on all of our DWI cases with blood, and it's a very, very effective tool for doing DWI enforcement and prosecution.
Definitely sounds like it. And Jeff, does MAD support these operations when they have no refusal weekends?
Oh, definitely. We think that, again, police officers should be given even more power and authority to pull people over who've been drinking and driving. No refusal weekends, if they could take place every weekend, would be a great thing. It's a very expensive endeavor, though, and that's why grants have to pay for them, and they're done around these big weekends of the holidays that take place.
I see. And Officer Burres, when these cases actually reach the courts, how important is it to have this blood work?
Well, the blood evidence is very important because the way we prove intoxication in Texas is by two ways. One is having lost the normal use of mental and physical faculties, and you can watch like a police video from a dash cam that shows someone is obviously impaired.
Like when you do the walk in the line
exactly.
and stuff like that?
And when they're staggering, stumbling, falling over, leaning on their car, that has lost the normal use of mental and physical faculties. The other is that by having a statutory limit of 0.08 alcohol content in your blood or breath. The blood evidence, once we get a printout from the Southwest Institute of Forensic Sciences, which is our crime lab that we use, that we can, provide to the prosecutors to show to the jury that here is the defendant's blood. There is no doubt. This is what you can take back and deliberate over. This is the defendant's blood. It obviously is above 0.08. So we have proven not only with the video that shows that he's impaired because this officer made his arrest decisions based on how the person did the field sobriety evaluations, but here's now the blood evidence that shows that they are impaired. Makes it very, very easy for convictions.
And when you talk about convictions, what are the range of punishments?
Well, for DWI, your first offense is a Class B misdemeanor. It's up to 180 days in jail and a $2,000 fine. Obviously, you're not going to serve 180 days in jail for your first offense because DWI is one of those, what we consider it's a non-socioeconomic boundary offense, which means it affects the super rich and affects the super poor. It doesn't just affect a specific group of the public.
Sure.
So an average person that may have a little bit too much to drink tonight at a Christmas party, who has a good paying job, is productive in society and has kids and stuff, they're not going to serve 6 months in jail. They'll get probation. The fines then start going up from there. If you get a second DWI, that's up to a year in jail and a $4,000 fine. Your third DWI, once you have 2 previous convictions, is now a felony. So it's 2 to 10 years in the penitentiary and a $10,000 fine, or both. So the punishments keep going up.
I see. In the media, we see it time and time again where people are saying some of those punishments are just not enough because they tend to have repeat offenders over and over and over again. So with you being with MAD, do you find that to be the concern too, that you're hoping maybe the punishments can be even stronger in the future?
In many cases, yes. There are people who unfortunately wreck and kill someone and get probation for it from time to time. At other times, I've seen a case this past year where someone did that and received 20 years. A lot of it is just how the judge rules and then how the judge then sentences that person. It's unfortunate, but we see many repeat offenders in Texas. I remember one story, I guess about a year and a half ago, a guy was convicted of his 9th drunk driving offense.
Wow.
Had never hit or killed anyone, fortunately, but had driven that many times. And really the scariest part is the statistic that by the time you get your first drunk driving offense, you've probably driven drunk 80 times.
Wow.
That's a lot.
That's a whole lot. And I know Matt is very active in Austin. What kind of legislation would you like to see passed? What are they pushing towards?
Well, we're pushing for ignition interlocks for all offenders. In the state of Texas, you receive an ignition interlock on either your second offense or if your blood alcohol concentration is 0.15 or above. But we think it would help to have it for all offenders. There are now 20 states in the country that have that law on the books, or at least some of them are starting the 1st of January. A couple of those states have seen their number of drunk driving deaths go down by 47 and 48%.
Wow. That's huge.
Now, yeah, in Texas, that would mean 600 lives saved.
Wow.
We also, of course, as I mentioned earlier, would like to see sobriety checkpoints legalized throughout the state. That gives officers a huge tool to be able to make sure that people aren't going to the bar districts or party districts and then going out and driving afterwards.
Wow. And you've mentioned some of the programs that Matt offers, but can you tell us about some of the others you haven't talked on yet?
Yes, we have a very big program that we're just gearing up towards now that we've restarted called Power of Youth.
Okay.
And that's a program to talk to kids more in depth about the dangers of underage drinking. And one of the strongest programs we have right now is called Power of Parents. MAD used to do things a lot based on emotions, and now we're doing it more based on science. And we've partnered with Penn State University and really discovered that the most influential person in a child's life, believe it or not, is still their parent. And so if we can get parents to talk to their underage kids about the danger of just drinking, we're not talking underage driving and drinking, we're just talking drinking, because if you're under the age of 21, there's zero tolerance there. Kids who drink under the age of 21, there are more deaths from underage drinking than all other illegal drugs combined. That amazed me when I found out. Last year, over 4,700 people were killed due to underage drinking.
Wow.
And we teach a free program. Again, it's also on our website, and they can get a free brochure and watch some videos called Power of Parents. It's 30 minutes long, and it just gives the parents the tools they need to sit down and have a serious talk to their children about the dangers of underage drinking.
Awesome, because people often say, if I just knew exactly what to say to them,
Right.
so you put it together for them. Go to their website and check that out. Now we're going to switch topics just a little bit. Officer Burres has something to talk to us about. He's going, what? Do I really? Yeah, you do. I know this is going to give him a chance to promote the police and fire department's Blue Christmas program. Tell us about it.
Blue Christmas is where the Irving Police Department and the Irving Fire Department team up to give toys to families in need throughout the city.
I love it.
The police department and the fire department will be delivering those toys in the squad cars and ambulances and fire trucks throughout the city. I'm not sure what the dates are that they're planning on the delivery. It's on the, I believe, on the city's website.
Okay, we can go there and see.
There, you can probably go there and see. But the officers, if there's a family that's in need of assistance this Christmas or something, then I think you can go on the website, actually fill out some information on the website, and the police department will do what we can to try and make sure that the kids from those families have a good Christmas, and that presents are delivered to them, and that it shows that the police and the fire department of the city do care about the citizens that reside here. That's
wonderful. What kind of feedback do you get each year from that?
Oh, great feedback. I mean, it's fantastic. The kids love it, and it's neat to see the police car or the fire truck pull up, and officers wearing a Santa hat and a uniform, delivering Christmas toys and stuff to them. And it's a smile on the kid's face to see that they're not forgotten, that they're going to actually have a good Christmas, and that someone out there does care about them. So.
And I bet it makes y'all feel good too.
Oh, it does. Kind of warms the heart. Tis the season.
I bet. And speaking of the season, we're going to go back to the topic just a bit. Jeff, we want to get your final thoughts on what people can do to just make a difference. You've talked about them talking to their children, right, telling them not to drink, period. And you've mentioned the important thing is don't drink and drive. What other things do we need to keep in mind this holiday season?
Well, I often reiterate the fact that during the season there are lots of people who will go to a party and drink that may not drink during other times of year. And I say to everyone that I talk to about this, once you've had a couple of drinks, your mind doesn't work the way that it did before you had that drink. So the most important thing is to plan ahead, to make sure if you're going to a party, fine, have fun, enjoy it, but plan ahead of time. Make sure you have a way to get home with someone who hasn't been drinking, or you're going to spend the night at your friend's house. A large number of people this time of year who get drunk don't just do it at bars. They go to their friend's house where they're throwing a big party and then drive afterwards. So to those friends, if you're throwing a party, be a responsible party person and make sure that your friends who are coming to your house for the party don't drink and drive. Have them spend the night or line up a cab for them. I've seen instances of people who collect the keys at the door, and if you've had drinks, you don't get your keys back. And line up a cab for them to go home that night or let them spend the night over. It's just, if you plan ahead of time, you can really make a difference and save a life. This is the time of year that we see numbers spike in the number of people who get killed and injured by drunk drivers. And it's awful during this season, because for those families that lose a loved one around Christmas time or New Year's, guess what? Every Christmas or New Year's, guess what the first thing is they think of? That loss. So you can stop that, and we can stop that by not drinking and driving at all, and making a plan ahead of time to get home safely.
Wonderful. And another thing to point out, just by having you here, it's obvious that Mothers Against Drunk Driving is not just women. There's men in there, and people don't realize that sometimes. And so anyone can get involved and join the organization and help out, can't they?
They can. We're always looking for volunteers, for people to help us get the word out. We're looking for people to help us year-round to get that word out, not just at Christmas time and not just around the 2 walks that we do, but anyone can volunteer at any time and come in and really see what we do.
Wonderful, thank you. And Officer Burres, we're just about out of time, but I want to take the last few minutes to give you the opportunity to tell people what they can do. We mentioned dial 911 if you see someone that you suspect may be a drunk driver out there, and how they can make sure they give you the right information and what location they may be at. What else can we do to make a difference this holiday season?
Well, kind of just adding what Jeff was saying, before you go out and drink, judgment is the first thing that's impaired when you start consuming alcohol. You start making decisions that you wouldn't normally do. So it's very important, if you're going to go out tonight, choose a designated driver before you're going out. Have a plan of action before you go out. If you're going to go to an event or something, you might want to take a public transportation over there. Take a taxi to there, which means you have to take a taxi home. So there's no chance of you driving intoxicated. If you're having a party and you're going to be the host of the party, take the keys from people if you're going to be serving alcohol. Or make sure that the designated driver is the one that takes the intoxicated people home. There are a lot of establishments that provide free services for the designated driver. Free chips, free food, free soft drinks and iced tea or whatever for the person that's actually going to be responsible for that group of people that go to that establishment. So just plan ahead. Drunk driving is a 100% preventable crime, and we'd like to see a safe and happy holiday season and have no more accidents, no more fatalities between now and the end of the year.
Wonderful, and we hope that is the case. That would be a wonderful thing to report next year. Thank you all for being here and taking time out of your schedule to talk to us.
You bet.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
And thank you for watching this edition of Open Line. I'm Starlene Stringer. Please be sure to join us on Thursday, January 16th at 1:30 p.m. for our next edition of Open Line. Police Chief Larry Boyd will have the latest crime stats and explain new police initiatives. Now, if you have questions, go ahead and get those in by emailing ictn@cityofirving.org or connect with us on Facebook. That's on our next edition of Open Line. We'll see you then.